Welcome back to another episode of the Triathlon Preview Show. We're on episode 32.
Hello, everyone.
So last weekend we had a couple good races. We'll cover one race real fast just because we did some picks for that late race. 70.3 Mont Tremblant. We'll go over the men's side first. The finishing was Sanders first, Wartell second, and Chris Lefferman third.
Yep.
Let's see here. And Emily, you had Wartell. No, I'm sorry. You had Sanders, Wartell, Trenzo, Bazone. So top two for you.
Yeah, Bazone didn't start, so yeah. And we missed Lefferman. We should have talked about him. I mean, he's a really good runner and he did well at Wildflower earlier in the year, so our bad.
Yep. And then all I had Sanders one, and then I had Russell and Reed. So
yeah. And Reed had a pretty good race. I mean, that was his third race of the month. He did DNF the first one in Raleigh due to a flat, but he was fifth, so solid there.
Yep. For the women, we had a finishing podium of Holly Lawrence, Heather Wartell, and Lauren Barnett.
And you were spot on there. Got them all right. And Lawrence just lit everybody up. Wow. She had a great race.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a good race. Outbiked Wartell, and then had a faster run than her too.
Yeah, held on for I don't know. I won't say held on. She had the fastest run. She killed that race. And then I think Magali had some stomach issues or something, and she ended up DNFing.
Yeah, you had Wartell, Lawrence, and Magali, so just 1-2 swapped around.
Yeah, so not bad.
Definitely good combination between the two of us. So keep on listening for those picks.
Yes.
All right, let's get to this weekend of racing. We have ITU is back, so we'll start with a little Fast and Furious racing there in Stockholm.
Yeah, this is the final Olympic distance before the Olympics in Rio. So this is a full Olympic distance, and then Hamburg will be a sprint, and then it'll be Rio. So winding down, but still got to definitely have a good start list going on for sure.
What about the course for Stockholm then? Any difficulties or technical bike, anything like that?
Yeah, the bike is actually pretty technical. Kind of think narrow streets, cobblestones, and then I don't know if you remember if you watched any of the highlights last year. The T1 and T2 are in separate places, but T2 is on a hill. So, and then they bike through that, I believe, and they run through it for sure. So there's a pretty nasty hill. Coming out of transition on the run and then each lap on the run. So it's a tough race for sure. And with the narrow streets that might give way to some bike breakaways. I think a little bit similar maybe to Leeds, which was a new race, but that was a smaller European town, narrow streets. And I think Stockholm is even narrower. So this might be a good race for some breakaways, and you got the Brownlees racing. So they're always keen for that. And I'm sure they'll try to drop Gomez. That seems to be their big thing.
All right, well, let's move into the men's field first then. Like you said, we have both Brownlees and Gomez. We had Mola fall off the start list, and Vincent Luis, they fell off the start list, so they're not starting. But we got Fernando Alvarez, Vincent Hernandez, so Spain's well represented.
Yeah, and we have Varga out. He'll be out in front on the swim. He trains with the Brownlees, so I'm sure they'll be working the swim hard to try to get a break, similar to Leeds. Aaron Royal is not on this list, so they won't. He was one of their counterparts in the Leeds breakaway, so he won't be there, but I'm sure they'll scoop up whoever they can. And the Spaniards have been racing really well. So, and there were less Spaniards on the Leeds list. So I wonder if, because there's more, like maybe Gomez would have people to work with on the bike, because Alarza and Hernandez are going to want to get up front too. So I don't know how that dynamic will play out, but it should be a pretty good race, I think.
Yeah, Henry Schumann is there, so he should probably be looking at a front spot on the swim too.
Yeah, and last year he had a really good race in Stockholm. It was one where kind of the first time he ended up hanging on the run, and his run kind of started to come around. So this might be a good course for him, kind of a strongman's course, and not as fast and drag race on the run due to that big hill. So that takes something out of people's legs. And you also have from the United States, Eric Lagerstrom is heading over there, and he did well in this race last year. He was top 20. So, and he's a really good technical biker. So he'll be, I'm sure, out there trying to get to the front on that bike and working real hard too.
Yeah, I think last year he made the lead swim pack too, if I remember correctly. So he could be looking up there for to help push the pace too.
Yeah, he was definitely in the lead swim pack last year. So, and I'm sure he's coming around after his IT band injury, and Alcatraz was better, and so I'm sure he's just getting fitter and fitter. And it might be a good time because other people are starting to focus on the Olympics. So while they're here to race and do their best, they're going to be focusing their fitness and everything on August 18th. So that could make a little bit of a difference. Like they might be coming into this race a little more tired or something like that. So there's opportunity, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
How do you think it's gonna pair out? End up? Both Brownlees, went off the front last time. Do you think we'll have Jonathan? Alistair taking the win again, or
I don't know. I mean, it looked like Alistair ran pretty well in Leeds, and he's coming, back from that ankle surgery. And I think he surprised himself in Leeds with how good he felt on the run. I saw something where he said his run is like 75% right now, which is a little scary. Gomez did, I believe, had the fastest run in Leeds. He was he was in the back of the second pack. I think maybe Gomez's bike is going to be a little bit better. And they really hit it hard out of the transition in Leeds. There was a hill right there, and the Brownlees were racing at home, so they were even more fired up. So I think Gomez might be able to take this one, and then I'll say Jonathan does well and beats Alistair, and then Alistair, I'm sure he'll be top 5 probably, or he'll win, one of the two.
Yeah, I think as long as Gomez is there a little longer, I think we got about 20, maybe 30 seconds. He ran faster than Alistair and a whole minute faster than Jonathan at Leeds. So, but obviously they rode harder and they had the lead they needed to. So, it's kind of hard to look at that too. I mean, how much faster could they have run if they needed it to? If they needed 5 more seconds, could they run 5 more seconds faster?
I would say and they were out in front, so on the bike and really pushing the pace. So that took something out of their legs. If they had all been kind of sitting in the pack and not trying to drill it, they would have been a little fresher. Like Gomez, they didn't show the second pack a ton, but I'm sure he wasn't out in front doing a ton of work like the Brownlees were. So I agree with you there. I think when they're all together, it'll be a different story on the run. They're not just going to let Gomez run away unless he's killing it. Yeah. I think Gomez will want to have a good kind of last Olympic distance WTS race. We haven't seen him race a lot this year, and just it's good for the mind.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's move on to the women's list, because I think the women's list is very intriguing. Has a lot of big names, especially from the Great Britain side. They have all their basically hitters there: Jodie Stimson, Helen Jenkins, Nan Stanford, Vicky Holland. They're all there.
That's their top 4. And the last time we saw Helen race, she did really well on the Gold Coast, and it was a technical bike course. So this might be another spot where she can try to get away. I know she took a little bit of a break after the Gold Coast to kind of let her body recharge for a big build to the Olympics. So don't know how like fresh and sharp she'll be, but I'm sure she'll be super strong. So it'll be, I think it'll be interesting to see how she races with Non and Vicky, because we haven't seen that yet. And Non, actually, her swim was a little off in leads. So I'm sure she'll be motivated to be up there near the front because she's going to need to be for Rio if she wants to have a chance there.
Yeah, and then from the U.S. side, we have Sarah True and Katie are both racing. And like you mentioned, told me earlier, Sarah does pretty well on this course.
Yeah, she's won the last 2 years. So I'm sure she'll, you have good memories, of course. So I'm sure she's excited and very motivated to put in a good race. And I mean, this year hasn't been kind of typical Sarah. Like she's usually, a top 10 type person, and we haven't seen that as much. So I'm sure she really wants to get in a really solid race before Rio. I think that would just to kind of affirm that you're on the right track.
Yeah, I look for her to have actually a good race. I think she showed that in Yokohama she could be patient and still do good. So I think this time maybe she'll be looking to push it a little harder and be up closer to the front the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. And Katie, this is probably too her last, well, I'm sure it is the last Olympic distance race that she's going to do before Rio, like everyone else. So I know Katie's been training hard up in France. She's at an altitude camp, so she'll be coming down from altitude and probably has been doing quite a bit of work. So I'll have to see how her body responds to that.
We also don't want to forget we do have Flora Duffy. She has the #1 bib on again, and then Andrea Hewitt is racing. So those are two girls that are always up in the front. I mean, they're always finishing top fives left and right.
Yeah, and Flora, this type of course is going to suit Flora with the technical aspects, and if she can get into a break with some people who want to work in leads, those two British gals were told not to do any work, I believe, because Vicky and Non were in the back, so the British coaches didn't want a bigger gap opening up. So Flora had to do all the work there on her own, and I'm sure that sapped her a little bit for the run. But I think she'll have some people, if there is a break, that'll want to work with her. I mean, we saw it with Helen and Andrea in Gold Coast. And I know Flora just did a bike race. I saw it, I think, on Instagram with Paul Finley in Colorado. So, I mean, who knows if Paul is up there too? Could have them all working hard up front.
Should be a very interesting race, like you said, last Olympic race. So I guess everybody kind of wants to see where they're at. And then they'll go into their last big training blocks before Rio. We'll see how many people actually do Hamburg. Could be a nice little speed day-ish for them, shorter race, obviously, in the sprint. But this is the last Olympic distance.
I wanted to actually say something too about number 36, Taylor Knibb from the United States. This is her first WTS. She's 18 years old, and she just won the race in Kitzbühel. They had a junior race there, so she stayed over in Europe and is going to be racing here. And she's a real good swim biker, so I think it'll be an exciting day for her. Kind of first big race with the big gals.
Was she the one that everybody kind of just kept throwing her name out? Like she was the only one that was technically a domestique type for the Olympic bid, but she wasn't high enough in the qualification or whatnot and hadn't raced WTS races.
Yeah. And also like she's 18. So I'm sure there's some, not that she's immature, but like there's just some race experience that she needs. And looks like they're giving it to her, starting this weekend. So I think that's awesome. And, I'm sure it'll be a big learning experience for her.
You actually bring that up, and it actually reminds me that you see this female list for the United States that has some, like Taylor Knob and Renee Tomlin on this list that are younger than everybody else. And, then you have the two veterans between Katie and Sarah, but then the U.S. men's list has two people on the list. Like, you see the dominance in the U.S. women, and you don't see that in the U.S. men. And I don't know if it's just, to me, it's like younger guys aren't going to these races and doing them to get experience like these females.
Yeah, I mean, I know there are a couple junior guys that did well in the Kitzbühel race. I mean, maybe they just don't feel like they're ready to step up. Maybe they'll keep them and they'll do like some Continental Cups or some World Cups first. Maybe guys mature later than women. I don't know. I mean, it could be a whole host of things. But yeah, that there has definitely been just an abundance of the women coming through from the college recruitment thing, and maybe the guys are all just younger, so we'll have to wait a couple years and see.
All right, well, let's move on to the last regional championship Ironman of the year. So automatic qualification spots are up for grabs. So we have Ironman Frankfurt. Let's start with a little course information from Emily.
Yeah, so the swim is kind of two separate loops. One's shorter, and then you get out on the beach, and then you do a longer one. And then it's a bike. You bike out, and then you ride two loops, and then the run is four loops along the river in downtown Frankfurt. So visualize kind of a river like. I mean, obviously the city backdrop is different, but if you think Ironman Arizona, like they're kind of running along a canal like that. So good crowd support. And I actually checked the weather. It's supposed to be much cooler this year, kind of in the 70s, partly sunny. And it says no rain right now, which is good because there are some cobblestones on the course, which could wreak havoc. But there's some rain in the days leading up to the event. So if the weather kind of changes, they could have a little rain, but that remains to be seen. So I think it'll be maybe, it just depends if it'll be a faster day, but it's not going to be blazing hot like last year.
All right, well, let's start with the females this time. Obviously, right off the front, we probably 100% know Carfrey is not racing. She just validated her spot last weekend and had a pretty good race. And then let's see here. Who else do we not have? I think as far as that's all we officially know of.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all we definitely officially know of. It does look like Mel Halshill. We saw her on a couple lists earlier in the year and then nothing. And now she's on this list. And I kind of checked her social media and she's going to Europe. So she pretty much needs a win to guarantee herself a slot to Kona. If she doesn't win, I mean, she'll have a good amount of points just from finishing second, and then she has the 750 from a 70.3. But she would have to maybe do another race, which would be a bummer. If she doesn't win, she could win.
Like you said, she could win. I think I'm just double checking, and I think you are right about that. It looks like she needs a win. Yeah, no, like you said, maybe a second with a good 70.3.
Yeah, I mean, because she would have close to 4,000 with a second place, and then she'd probably need to do another 70.3, which might be tough, just because she have to do a really hard effort here and then recover and then do another hard effort, and there's always a risk there of injury.
Well, I'm pretty sure she only has one finish this year, so she's not worried about having too many races towards her points and one falling off and things like that. I think she has 750 from Geelong, and then this would be her second one. So all the points of the 73 would count.
Yeah. I mean, Danielle is obviously, she's the course record holder. She's the favorite by a long shot. She is so strong. She doesn't need to win it to make it back to Kona. She just needs to validate, but I'm sure she wants to win it and is going to go for it. So I think she's a tough one to knock off that top spot. And I think Mel would have to have like an out of this world race to do it. And she'll be coming from behind because she's going to be out of the water behind. The only thing that may help a little bit is, as we saw last year on that Frankfurt course, remember there's a lot of traffic. So as far as cyclists, motorcycles, etc. So there could be some not intentional help out there if you're kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you have the media. There's going to be motos out there. There's going to be other
Yeah.
people out there to
Yeah.
unintentionally use their draft, whatever you want to call
Yes.
it.
Yeah. Especially if there's like a wind coming from the side.
But besides those two, I mean, obviously the start list is still very good. Deanna Reisler, Christian Moeller, other good names on the list that are looking for Kona points, and they're definitely not far off. I mean, there's some that only need to finish. There's some that could use just top 6 or top 5 slots, to get their points.
Yeah, and another person to look out for is number 33, Emma Bilham. She's training with Sutto, and she just won Challenge Galway this past weekend in Ireland. And she's kind of been on a tear. Did pretty well at her first Ironman, which I believe was it France? I can't remember.
Yeah, she did. I think so. I think that's right.
Yeah. She was maybe second or something.
Yeah, she she only needs like a top 6, top 5s to get her Kona slot. So, I mean, she just needs a decent race.
Right. They
I
mean, she's a good athlete, so kind of look for her up front. And Soto doesn't put people in a race unless they're ready to crush it.
I mean, it looks like from the start list this year, and I don't remember last year, did Daniela leave from start to finish last year?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's possible that she could do that again this year. As far as I don't see any, I mean, obviously no name swimmers, but there's a lot of Europeans that I could be overlooking. But I mean, it looks like she could be, right off the front. So,
yeah, like someone like Christian Moeller and Danielle or Diana Reisler are going to come from behind. They're not very good swimmers. Emma Billen's a pretty good swimmer, so she could be close to the front. But yeah, you're right. The rest of the field would probably be behind out of the swim.
it will be interesting to see how Mel responds on the bike because, like you said, she's going to be coming from behind, and I think she knows that she needs the top 2 or top 1 to have a shot at Kona. So she knows Danielle is not going to hold back on that bike either.
Yeah. And Mel races pretty aggressively, so she's not afraid to go for it. And we just don't know like where her run fitness is. She's had some injuries. So excuse me. So it'll be just don't know how that's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, also we have Dimitri Lee Duke. She was in Kona last year, so look out for her. She just needs, a couple points to qualify for Kona 2. A bunch of Europeans, and you never know. Germans, obviously, too, have filled the list. So you never know where they're going to come in, and maybe 1 or 2 of them might be able to lay down some bike splits like they're the German men.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one more thing with Mel, like remember the last time she did Melbourne, she had the blister problem.
Yes.
Like, hopefully, she's got that solved too, because she was running great and that kind of stalled her quite a bit. And she's going to run like, if she's behind off the bike, she'll run like hell, especially the first half to catch up. So.
Yeah, I mean that puts a good point. That I mean, if it does get hot, like you said, it might not get too hot, but if it does get hot and she's running balls to the walls the first half, it could bite her in the ass in the second half. Obviously she had those blisters. She was a little like walking in Melbourne, but then got running again, and obviously ended up winning still. So we'll see how that could play a factor. I would assume that she has the blister problems figured out. Kind of a rookie thing there, hopefully.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just I'm very curious to see how she goes because she hasn't raced a lot, but when she does race, like she's usually near the front. So,
I mean, is there any doubt in your mind that Daniela doesn't win?
I mean, she's just so solid across all three. Like even if Mel has a great run, and she might make some inroads, but I just feel like Daniela on the swim and the bike is going to have such a lead. It's hard to come back from that. And if Mel gets impatient on the bike and tries to go after her, I think that'll take away from her run. So, um, yeah, I think it's probably Daniela probably will win. Um, and I'm sure she probably wants to put up a good time because Miranda put up a pretty good race last week. So, um, you know, Sutter will say that they don't care about that, but I think they do.
All right. Well, let's move on to the men's then. We have Sebastian's on the list. Boss, Timothy O'Donnell, Joe Gamble's. There's a decent list throughout the men's field.
Yeah, and Sebastian won a couple years ago. The year he won Kona, he won this race, had a really good race here. And Andy Brochure, he was third last year. Boss was fourth last year. And Neko Llanos is on the list. He was eighth last year. So
He's won
there's,
before.
yep. And then Joe Gambles has been doing really well this year. So excited to see how he goes, kind of double the distance. From the halves that he's done really well, see if he can really nail an Ironman. He won Ironman Wisconsin a number of years ago, but he really hasn't hit another Ironman as well as that one recently, and he had some injury problems last year, but looks like he's got those figured out, and gonna see what he can do here. I mean, he needs to probably finish pretty high up to get Kona qualification sorted. Although he did,
I think, let's see, he needs about fifth, sixth-ish area. Joe Gambles does.
Yeah, that's not so bad because he did pretty well at St. George, got some big points there.
Yeah,
and then won Boulder. So he's well on his way points wise. I'm wondering how Timothy O'Donnell is going to go. I'm sure he's not in like Kona tip top shape, but I'm sure he's in pretty solid shape. And given how Miranda did last weekend, I would say Tim's probably pretty ready to go. And this is his first time kind of racing over in Frankfurt against these Germans and Europeans.
This is kind of his first time racing. Looks hard probably since Kona.
Yeah. I mean, he's done some races, like he did St. George and maybe another one, Puerto Rico. No, not Puerto Rico. Maybe he did do Puerto Rico. No, I can't remember. Well, anyway, yeah. This is his first big hit out after Kona, and I'm sure he wants to do well. I mean, I don't know if he doesn't have to win, clearly. But I think he probably wants to put a solid race together, get some rest, and then do that final Kona build. And that will set him up well for Kona.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I'm waiting for Sebastian to kind of unleash that bike again, and really have a bike where we just go, wow, that's so him, and that's fast. Where I think lately he hasn't been up there. I mean, he's been top 3, but you expect him to have the best bike split and like dominate.
Yeah, and I'm sure he wants that too, right? Like that's always been his MO. So I'm sure he wants to kind of kill this bike as well. And last year, Jan set a bike course record, I believe. I think he rode 408. Keenley rode 411, which is still like stupid fast. But I'm sure Keenley wants to kind of show that dominance again on the bike. And And he's shown in the past that he can do really well at this race and be really fit and go really fast and still have a good Kona. So he's not afraid to do that. And he likes it's a big thing for the Germans to do well at this race. It's televised. It's huge. So they come in ready to go. And I think Keenlay will be very, very fit for this.
So the other thing that we actually, I mean, at least have to be not worried about, but at least acknowledge is that this is a late Ironman. So people like Sebastian, Timothy O'Donnell, Andy, and even Reef, they need to finish. There's few Ironmans after this that you really want to put yourself into and still have a good Kona build. And those four, at least, they just need to finish to validate for July's slots, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to like do the build for this race, have something go wrong, not finish, and then not be able to have a proper recovery, like have to worry about doing another race at the end of July or beginning of August, because that just pushes everything back. So, yeah, I think unless something goes really, really wrong, these guys are going to finish, someone like Tim O'Donnell or Sebastian Kienle, like, if they get a flat or something like that, like they'll fix them, or they'll have bike support out there, and I think yeah, they'll definitely finish for sure.
Or they need a competitive finish. They change the wording.
Yes, I'm sure, like if something happened and they had a huge bike mechanical and then they soldiered through and ran a decent marathon, no one's going to say anything.
Yeah, I mean, it should be interesting. I mean, Kinley will be behind, obviously, off of the swim. There's decent amount of swimmers. There's decent front of pack swimmers here that should be swimming in the 45s or 46 this race. So there should be a good group of those guys out front.
Yeah, I mean, but remember, I mean, last year at Kona, like Kienle was out. I remember seeing him run through T1. I was like, holy crap, he's already here. I mean, he was right there. So his swim is better. But you're right. You're gonna have like Marco Albert, Tim O'Donnell, Joe Gambles, maybe Blot. How do you say his name? Number 64.
Oh,
yeah, your friend.
Balaj.
Yeah,
I forgot he's racing.
Yeah, so you're gonna have kind of a group up in front, but I think Kienle will be relatively close. Sudre, the guy from France. Also, someone else to mention is Bertrand Billard. He DNF'd at Ironman France, but he had the fastest bike there, so maybe blew up a little bit or something. But he'll be someone who's going to be out in front as well.
Yeah, I'm really starting to go down in the men's list to try to get to the bottom of some of these names because, like you said, you don't want to miss a couple names on the bottom that you're not too aware of.
Yeah, but, I mean, you have Igor Amarelli's on there, the guy from Brazil.
Jeremy
Yep.
Jerkowitz, something. Yeah, from France. He's definitely he's tough, and I wouldn't count him out for a top 10, and I'm sure he needs somewhere in the realm of a top. He needs somewhere in the top 10 to get his Kona slot.
Yep, and you have Victor Del Corral's on this list, but I assume he's not starting. Same with Mikey Weiss, who just did Austria. So those are a couple that I'm assuming are not going to be starting the race, but are still on the list.
All right, let's move over to the last race of the weekend, Ironman 70.3 Norway. We'll just hit this one real fast.
Yep. The bike is described as technical, so that is not something you often see at these at kind of these races, but it's in Norway, kind of older, smaller roads, so that might play a factor.
Yeah, I mean, just the list is we have Osplay, Rudy Wild, Stuart Hayes, Andre Dritz is on the list.
Yeah, Kalefelt.
Yep.
Brad Collefelt. So Nils Fromhold, Ronnie from Switzerland. We'll just call him Ronnie. And then the women's side, you have Mary Beth Ellis, who just got diagnosed. She got Lyme disease. So I don't know kind of what effect that'll have on her. You have Tyne Holst, your winner from France. We'll see if she's starting. Rodka, Susie Cheatham, Camilla Peterson coming back from a collarbone break. She had a bike crash. And then Nicola Spierig's on the list. So she's someone to look out for. She ran a 1:14 half marathon at her last 70.3. So that's kind of scary fast.
Yeah, we'll see how that. It's interesting that she's still doing a couple of these longer races before Rio, but maybe getting that endurance in, and while she gets some speed in with a 1:14. So we will see.
Yeah, I mean, we got to remember Nicholas Spierig, Brett kind of prepares her different. I mean, she did a half Ironman 2 weeks before she won the gold in London. So, they do their own thing.
All right. Well, we do want to thank Rudy Project helping out, and you can use the code TRYPREVIEW for 40% off on their website.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Have a happy 4th of July. It's a holiday weekend, and we'll be back next week.
Thanks, everybody.